year was 1969. Bear Clooney was 3 years old. He remembers gazing up at the moon, hoping to see the astronauts. By his side was his father. On his wrist, Omega watch. And that special moment cemented his love for space exploration and the Speedmasters that played such an important role. Hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining me on Bear Clooney Watches channel. I am Bear Clooney, and you're joining me in a search for a perfect timepiece. Obviously, watch that we are discussing today cannot be ignored when we are searching for a perfect timepiece. Arguably, this is one of the most iconic timepieces. Many will argue that it is the most iconic timepiece. And when you get the watch enthusiast discussing and talking about what would be the most memorable, most important, most horologically significant watch, wristwatch, many will argue about two watches. They will talk about Rolex Submariner and Omega Speedmaster. I am kind of in between. I really have a difficulty choosing which one of these two pieces should be titled as a most iconic timepiece. But Omega Speedmaster certainly is a type of watch that could easily have that title. What makes it most iconic? Well, it is the first watch that landed on the surface of the moon. It is a watch that's been with the NASA for a very long time. It is a watch that has proved historically to be exceptional tool watch. And then on the other hand, it's loved by so many. It seems that regardless of our affinity, brand loyalty, level of value of our collections, Speedmaster somehow always finds its way into watch collectors' collection. And there's got to be a reason for it. It is a watch that holds so much of its past DNA, and it has so many great stories to tell. And in the same time, it represents probably a great value timepiece. Often it's recommended as the best first luxury watch. I kind of debate that because, it is a tool watch with its hex light, with its mechanical winding movement. This watch could be underwhelming for someone who is not into watches very much. And you might expect true luxury from this timepiece, which ultimately and originally is a tool watch. So I am cautious when I'm recommending this timepiece, and I tend to recommend this more to watch enthusiasts than people who are just looking for one timepiece and searching for that perfect one watch as a luxury watch. Now, fast wristwatch check. This beautiful timepiece that I'm talking about today certainly brings emotions, brings certain memories, brings certain feelings, and prior to making this video, I was debating how do I approach this. There's so many videos about Omega Speedmaster that are addressing its history, that are addressing how the watch came all about. You can read about movements, you can hear and read about debates about the movements. You can see that aesthetics of the watch are often discussed. So, as usually, I am going to touch on different things, but I am usually attracted to watches based on their history, on their heritage, on their quality, and I think that's the approach I'm going to take today. So, when I think about how do I illustrate what this watch is all about, I come up with this story. Well, you see, Neil Armstrong did not have this watch when he stepped on the surface of the moon. But the reason why, I think, perfectly illustrates the nature of this watch. When they were about to land on the surface of the moon, the computer, or let's say something that we can call computer at that time, has made actually an error. And they were debating to abort the mission. It was kind of difficult situation. Utilizing computer for landing was not an option, so it was either abort the mission or do it manually. And doing it manually required timing so that fuel is not overburnt for the purpose of leaving the moon. So Neil Armstrong, who was piloting the module that was landing on the moon, actually took his Omega Speedmaster off his wrist and was timing it using the chronograph complication to actually precisely measure the time of fuel burning. Therefore, after he left the module, the capsule, and stepped on the surface of the moon, he did not have the chronograph Omega Speedmaster on his wrist. I think this story sums up the nature of this watch, which is ultimately a greatest tool watch. A tool watch that ensured safe landing of the first human on the moon and safe departure from the same. I think the role of this watch is significant. Now, that story illustrates perfectly the tool nature of this watch. Looking at this piece is another dimension of it. It is simple, it is perfectly balanced, and it is simply beautiful. We will now take a closer look of this watch and discuss a little more about Omega Speedmaster, going to Bear Clooney Watches Studio. Join me. And here we are at Bear Clooney Watches Studio, taking actually a look at the gift box that presents this beautiful Omega Speedmaster Professional Legendary Moonwatch. We start with the outer box, and you might ask me, why have I never done box presentation before? I think looking at this box, it's evident that this is something different, something unique, and ultimately it deserves our attention. I think this watch nicely presents a legendary, truly iconic timepiece that started with the original conception in 1957. And I think this watch honors this piece. So that's one of the reasons that I'm actually presenting it to you today. So this is basically regular stuff you will find in it. When we remove the box, as you can see, there is instructions that nobody ever reads, kind of like about the bracelet, about the watch itself. It's just a part of the package, but this is the interesting part. This actually has some really nice photography inside, and it's like a brochure that actually honors the space exploration connection with this legendary watch. And I think it's a nice little addition, nice little amenity to have while owning this timeless piece. This is actually the original Omega Speedmaster on the strap that was used in the flights. And that strap is actually included, that style of strap is included in this package, in this set. Here is the main gift box that we took out. I'm going to open it for you and actually kind of just examine the content, because I think it truly is interesting and it validates the historical aspect of this watch. Here is the logo, the emblem, which is beautiful. You will appreciate it looking at it. I think it adds to certain luxury component to this overall still tool watch. And when you open it, the watch is obviously the centerpiece. On the right of the watch, we see paperweight, which is high quality. Again, it's the logo of the Speedmaster. Let me just take it out. It's kind of tight. So here we go. There is the Speedmaster logo. It's a paperweight. I think it's beautifully done, and it's a nice memento to have for anyone that appreciates, owns this timeless watch. In a back compartment, there are actually Nato strap, and there is this astronaut strap, I don't know, Velcro strap that is actually used on flights as they wear this watch on the top of their gear. So it is interesting to have that. I don't think there is really much use for it in an everyday life. I never even thought about, or it never really crossed my mind to use this strap. But it is cool. It is something that also commemorates and appreciates the space exploration attachment that this watch has. The other strap we're going to find in a back compartment is the Nato strap, which is actually nice. However, I am not a fan of Nato straps, even though Anthony pushing me to try it out and see how it looks on this Nato strap. I am just not motivated enough to do it. However, it is original Omega Nato strap. It's simple as Nato strap should be. It has the actually Omega clasp, which makes it kind of cool. And in the back we have this spring bar tool, which is beautiful. I think it's so nicely done. It adds to certain luxury component of this package, of this set. Love the logo on it. Love the feel, which is kind of graphite touch. It's matte black, high quality tool. And I never really use it because I actually have my tools. And I don't often change my straps. I prefer wearing my watches on the bracelets. However, this is a nice tool to have, and for anyone who is Omega fan, it represents a nice memento again. Also, we have some additional spring bars in the back in case we need to use it and change it. It's a nice little addition to our set. This is probably my favorite component of this set, magnifying loop Omega, which is truly high quality, and I really like how it's designed. It has this tachymeter around on the top. Look at this logo, how it stands out beautifully on that black matte background. Personally, I am a fan of this piece, And I think overall this package is so nicely done, and I like it a lot. So, what kind of appeals to me is honoring this timepiece. To me, boxes of the watches and so on are not necessarily that important. However, there is the centerpiece of everything. There is the legendary Moonwatch, Omega Professional, which has such a great DNA from its original piece. So now we're actually going to talk a little more about the Moonwatch. Now you might ask, hey, Bear Clooney, what's Snoopy doing there? Well, actually, for those who don't know, Snoopy was the mascot of the safety program of Apollo and NASA. And this is why I kind of appreciate Snoopy. This is 40th anniversary of that program. And I think Snoopy is such a cute little addition to overall Omega Speedmaster story and its attachment to the space program. And here actually I have a really cool strap done by Aaron, the great artist from Combat Straps, which basically he did for me, and it portrays Snoopy in its astronaut uniform, and the famous saying that they used in their safety program, that failure is not an option. And it truly wasn't the option. Lives depended on executing everything right. And I think this watch and its association with Snoopy adds a certain character and certain additional likeness to the whole thing. Now, from its original conception in 1957 until today, the Omega Professional has hardly changed over the years. It is still as elegant and reliable as ever, though a few minor tweaks have been made as technology has changed, gotten better. This watch features a stunning 42 millimeter stainless steel case and a hand-wound movement that can only be described as infallible. In fact, the only thing that has changed throughout the years is the caliber that drives this timepiece. The first watches were powered by caliber 321, which soon changed in 1968, which is my favorite year because this is the year where Bunny Clooney was born, to the caliber 861. From there, Omega introduced a rhodium plating on the movement, which allowed for a longer lasting and ultimately more efficient watch movement, which soon resulted in a caliber 1861 and 1863. Despite these changes, the Omega Professional Moonwatch has maintained the same accuracy and readability throughout the years and has remained largely unchanged from the first time it was featured on the moon. Another distinction that should be made between the Moonwatch and other watches is the material of the glass. Omega Professional Moonwatch here features the hazelite crystal, and that's why you have that such a cool distortion when you're looking on the side, which many of us watch enthusiasts appreciate. So it's not using sapphire crystal glass, which is used today almost regularly on modern watches. Hazelite is actually kind of durable, featuring shatterproof capabilities, and it is a surface that can have scratches, but they're easily buffed if that happens with polywatch, which if there is a serious damage, the hazelite face can be replaced at relatively inexpensive price. Now you notice when I was showing you the back of the watch, the honoring of the Apollo program, and I kind of want to mention also in this review that in 1970, Jack Swigert, the astronaut of the Apollo 13 flight, used the Omega Speedmaster Professional to accurately time the mid-course correction of the craft's propulsion of the module after a ruptured oxygen tank put the craft in jeopardy. This has been really nicely shown in a great movie, Apollo 13, and Tom Hanks actually plays Jack Swigert. The prompt response of Mr. Swigert, coupled with the accurate timekeeping of the Omega Speedmaster, is the reason for the Apollo 13 crew to be able to make it back to Earth safely. Because of this flight, NASA actually awarded the Omega Speedmaster and the crew of the Apollo 13 with a Snoopy Award, which is highly prestigious award signifying an outstanding achievement related to human flight and mission success. But let's kind of return to the watch. Let's kind of comment a little more on the watch. It's not a modern watch. It's a watch that holds so much of its past in itself. So that's why I mentioned earlier I hesitate to recommend it to be a perfect first-time piece, because it's simply still, when you're looking at it, it's a watch that can be appreciated if we understand what this watch is all about. Don't misunderstand me. It's beautiful, it's versatile, it's everything one person can appreciate in a watch, but it is a watch that must be understood for what really is. And now we are going to take a look at the lume at this watch, which I find completely in line with its heritage, with its vintage look. This pilot watch, this beautiful iconic timepiece, glows nicely with its timeless green lume, and it brings so much emotions and memories. I love it. Now we're going back to take a look at Wristwatch Presence. And here we can take a look at the wrist presence of Omega Speedmaster Professional 42mm on my 7.25 inches wrist. I think the wrist presence of this watch is remarkable. Certainly a beautiful bracelet contributes to the wrist presence of this watch, and the watch itself feels important, grandiose. The size is right. For a tool watch, 42mm, in my opinion, is great size. And overall, I am very pleased with wrist presence of this iconic timepiece. Welcome back to Bear Clooney's Cave. I hope I did justice to this iconic timepiece. Evidently, I have emotional connection with it, partially because of its history and heritage, partially because of my never-ending love for space exploration, partially because of the movement I highly respect, the Lemania 2310 1873 family of movements, which is now known as Omega 1861 caliber, is, in my opinion, a very decent movement. Partially because of its aesthetics, because I think this watch is beautiful in its simplicity, in its design. It's timeless. I had a friend who said to me once, "This watch is overrated." Not a chance. Not a chance, Imran. Ultimately, this watch might be spoken too much about. It might be overextended with so many limited editions. It might be just kind of mentioned too many times. But it remains to be genuine, original, and only one, Omega Speedmaster, Man on the Moon. Have a great day, everyone, and continue our search for a perfect timepiece. All the best.